Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Miles Hicks, and welcome to episode 2 of The Miles Hicks Show. Today, I recently watched the 2025 remake of Snow White and also the Minecraft movie. So, I'm going to just talk about my experiences with both. First, I'm just going to talk about Snow White because, you know, much like other people are saying, it's just awful. It's just terrible. The acting, I mean, it's like everyone phoned it in. Everyone knew that this production was going to flop, and so they all just decided to half-ass it and not even try. And which is a real shame, though, because, we're so starved for good movies. It's not that good movies aren't being made, it's that I would say not enough is coming out. And the industry is so hell bent on making remakes and sequels to movies that sometimes people haven't heard from in a very long time. You could say it's a business decision to do so, that it is much more, uh, how would you say, beneficial to reintroduce a franchise that hasn't been around for potentially decades, but that is still recognizable than starting off with something new. And that seems to be the case with Snow White, especially with a lot of the other Disney remakes. But as we've seen, it's not working out. People don't like these movies. I mean, I sure as hell don't like it. I mean, it has a low Rotten Tomatoes score. It's only made like what, $34 million domestically, and it needs like 250 to 300 million to break even, potentially even more than that. I mean, what the hell's going on? But to get into the actual movie, it stars Rachel Zegler, and I suppose it co-stars Gal Gadot as the evil stepmother queen. And the story, while is similar to the original, is very different in a lot of ways. And actually, after I had watched the remake, I decided to go back and watch the 1939 film because I hadn't seen it in forever. I barely remembered anything from it. And one of the things that I noticed was that in the original, Snow White has this childlike innocence and naivety to her, whereas in the remake, she acts more like an adult, but I don't mean that as a positive. Snow White in the original was sheltered from the outside world. She had little idea about what was actually out there, and thus approached everything with, as I said, this childlike innocence and wonder. And in a lot of ways, that makes her seem, fragile and weak, I suppose. But she was never meant to be a strong character. The point of Snow White is that she is, in fact, a damsel in distress that needs someone, or a group of people in this case, to look after her and take care of her, because that's what you do with people who, by one means or another, cannot protect themselves against people who are far more capable than they are. Whereas in the remake, even though there are lines that she says that hint to her naivety of the outside world, it seems as if like she quickly learns these lessons after the huntsman spares her life. Like, she goes from being this naive girl, quote unquote naive girl, to a capable badass warrior seemingly overnight. And it's a very jarring transition that they didn't manage to pull off. I mean, they tried so hard to convince the audience that now Snow White is this girl boss who can not only take care of herself but for other people. And that just wasn't the case in the original. I mean, Snow White in the original, while she did take care of the dwarves' house, uh, she very much didn't do it on her own. You know, she had the help of the dwarves to maintain the cleanliness and the civility in the house. But even in the original, she still like took charge and, you know, commanded the dwarves to get their act together. And in turn, they, you know, tried to protect her from the evil queen. Whereas in the remake, it almost seemed like that Snow White was eager to leave at the slightest drop of a hat. You know, she had done her duty of cleaning up the house of the dwarves, or not even that, just commanding them to do so, because the movie required Snow White to meet the dwarves. Otherwise, it's not really a Snow White movie, right? And that's what it feels like to me. It feels more like a Snow White experience as opposed to a Snow White movie. It feels more like a theme park ride. In fact, a lot of the Disney remakes feel like that. Like, this isn't a movie theater experience. This is like going to Disneyland or Disney World, getting strapped into the seat and going on a 5-mile-an-hour cart ride, experiencing all the different things that the film has to offer. Because Snow White does everything in the movie, in the remake. You know, she gets her beauty, how would you say, taken away, sheltered, because of the jealousy of the queen. And then she's sent off into the wilderness to be killed by the queen, or killed by the huntsman ordered by the queen. And that happens in the original too, but even in the remake, she still looks exceptionally beautiful, you know, relatively speaking. I mean, I don't think Rachel Zegler is all that attractive, but the original Snow White, I mean, talk about a character that was more beautiful and less desirable clothing. Like, even in the original, she was wearing like torn burlap sacks with patches. And the remake, she was still wearing very opulent clothing. Like, it was still very colorful and unique. Even though this is supposed to be a girl that's had her entire, you know, family claim to the throne stripped from her, yet she still looks like a princess even at her lowest of lows. And so, you know, she goes off to the wilderness, and the huntsman is ordered to kill Snow White. He doesn't do it because as a little girl, and one thing I find very interesting is that in the original, even though the huntsman was still planning on killing her, you know, he hesitates. He puts away the knife and tells her to run and not look back. In the remake, for some reason, they added this line of "go before I change my mind." Like, that's interesting. Why did you add that line? I mean, the implication is that the queen would do terrible things to him and that he's still slightly motivated to do so, to kill Snow White. But in the remake, he has a complete change of heart. I'm not sure what's going on, but it seems like that there's in a lot of movies nowadays, there's a push to have characters. You can't simply have a wholly evil or wholly good character. I mean, Snow White in the remake is not a wholly good character. She has some very severe flaws to her. And even the Queen, I would say that she's probably the most faithful character to the original. But even then, she still has like all these qualities to her that don't make her seem all that bad. Like in the original, the stepmother pretty much usurped the throne. Whereas in the remake, she kind of just like slides into it. If you're like me and many Americans, then you have noticed the inefficiencies in the fast food industry. Fast food is no longer fast, and it arguably isn't food anymore. But thankfully today, there's a startup company called Chugsy that is willing to revolutionize the fast food experience with their new line of fast food smoothies. Now you can enjoy the delicious taste of a Big Mac meal, a Whopper combo, and a Doritos Locos Tacos with a Baja Blast, and a quick and easy drinkable format without any of the hassle of going through a fast food lane. Go to chugsy.com/Hicks to start your subscription at a 3% discount when you subscribe to Chugsy for 3.5 to 4 years. That is chugsy.com/Hicks for a 3% discount. And so, Snow White leaves. She goes through the forest, and then she finds the woodland critters who then take her to the house of the dwarves. And then she commands them to clean up the house. She doesn't do it herself, like she did in the original. And then they find her, and she goes on an adventure with them, but then she finds the bandits that the original never even mentioned. Well, the original did mention it, but they never made an appearance. And so then she goes up and joins up with these, multicultural, ethnic background group of bandits who are still wearing very colorful clothes. In fact, the whole movie, the remake, is quite clean and colorful. It's hard on the eyes to look at sometimes. And it shows the artificialness of the movie, that the environments that they shot in were completely staged. Like, everything has been micromanaged and meticulously handled. There's no such thing as like a dirt speck out of place. It kind of adds to the idea that this is more of a theme park ride, more of an experience than it is a story that is being told to you and being revealed to you. It is instead, as I said, getting on like a ride at Disney World and having a carefully, meticulously crafted experience. You can't even have a happy accident because that would destroy the immersion. Or even something that could be twisted into something that could be far greater than what was originally intended. I mean, even in like the town that is supposed to be like poor and decrepit because of the greediness of the queen is still in very good condition. It's not like people are throwing buckets of their own crap into the street or fighting over food. I mean, that's one of the key points of the Snow White movie. Is that because of the greediness of the queen that the kingdom is being plunged into chaos and economic depression. But you walk through the town square and everyone seems to be doing just fine. Like like that nothing has changed. But we're supposed to think that everything has changed because of the queen. I mean, why not keep her in power? So what if she has a whole bunch of riches and jewels? I'm sure I'm sure that whatever is going on, you'll get through it. Or why not just kill the queen yourself? I mean, why do you need Snow White to do it, which is eventually what ends up happening towards the end of the movie? Once, once she wakes up from the poisoned apple in the remake, she goes up to the queen herself. And there's a scene in particular where, Snow White is essentially given a crystallized dagger by the queen, and it's kind of like a scene out of Star Wars, pretty much. Strike me down, and you strike me down, and I shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine. But this isn't Star Wars, where there is a realm outside of the real world where Jedi are infused into the Force to become these powerful spirits. And this is still, in a lot of ways, real life. And so, had Snow White killed the queen, like, what would have happened? She still has a familial tie to the throne. She would have become queen then. And if these knights are as loyal, or if these, soldiers are as loyal as they are, surely they'll turn coat just as quickly as they did for the stepmother. And yet she doesn't do it. Because, I don't know, I guess she's stupid. But, the point is that, you don't win through violence, you win through love. Because that's the message we need to hear every freaking time we go see a movie. And it's as poorly delivered as it ever has been. Like, no, just take the dagger and jam her throat. I mean, she deserves death for what she's done. Apparently. If she really did kill your father, and if she really did plunge the kingdom into chaos, then death is a suitable punishment for her. Let God sort it out. But of course, they don't believe in God. So, death is the worst condemnation you can give a human being when there is no God, right? But they don't do that. Queen still dies by breaking the mirror, which they don't even explain how that works. Like, why does the queen die when she breaks the mirror? The queen dies in the original from falling off a cliff. Like, she tries to kill the dwarves with a boulder, lightning strikes a ledge that she's on, and then she falls in, which is a much more convincing death, even if it is not very satisfying. But at least she still gets her comeuppance, and no one's worse for wear because of it. I don't know, just a lot of the pieces are there for a Snow White experience, but it's a lot of the finer details that make it a stark contrast to what the original was trying to portray. And even then, that Snow White movie is a stark contrast to the original Grimm tale. Which, it may sound like I'm defending the classic quite a bit, and even though I think it's a decent movie and praise it for its animation, I think it still doesn't hold a candle to the original Grimm tale. And that if you're going to teach your kids anything about princesses and fairy tales and whatnot, it's probably best if you start with the tales and the source material that these movies are based off of, and then show them the adaptations, as opposed to them only learning from the original, or only learning from the remakes. Which is exactly what this movie is meant to do. It's not meant to add on or supplement what came before. It's meant to replace it. Who cares about the 1939 film anymore? That was back in 1939. That was before, the Nazis were defeated. And Walt Disney was known to be a very, a very influential character who seemed to be very pro-Nazi. At least that's what people say. So who cares? This is Snow White now. This is modern Snow White. Our interpretation of what Snow White should be. a very depressing and sad tale of a woman who essentially has everything handed to her without having to work for it because she has a good singing voice. I mean, that's the only thing I'll give the movie credit for, is that Rachel Zegler has a very beautiful voice when she's singing, that is, which kind of makes me wish the movie was just an opera, or I forgot exactly what the style of theater is called, but like even spoken dialogue is sung. I kind of wish it was just that, because hearing Rachel Zegler talk just normally makes my ears bleed. Same for all the rest of the actors. They didn't sound genuine at all. Like they phoned it in, and it was just a very, very hard movie to watch and listen to. Even some of the songs were pretty terrible. Like the opening song, it's just why? And even the same songs they did for the movie, it just didn't have the same punch, same appeal. You know, they think that if they add more instruments, more voices, more uniqueness to the songs, that's gonna make it in some way better, when in fact less is more. That the opening song in the original Snow White, with her essentially singing to herself in the well, you know, when she's saying, you know, I wish in a well or something like that. I thought that was, you know, honestly quite genius, incredible. I was actually quite floored with the amount of creativity that went into making that. But of course, that's what you get when you have people who are truly passionate about the project and know what they're doing, instead of people who are trying to manufacture engagement, not only by capitalizing off of nostalgia, but by people who think that movies are in fact a formula. You know, that as long as you have A, B, C, and D, then you're going to yield good movie. Like, that's just not how it works. You know, movies are not a mathematical equation, they're a creative endeavor. And if you're someone who wants to be creative, then you have to understand that. You have to understand that it's not an engineering problem. At least when it comes to like script writing, it essentially has its own identity. I mean, it's a you know, a lot of creatives talk about, you know, what's their favorite project, and the ones that you know, typically the ones that are truly successful and create a lot of good stories, they talk about it as if it's like their own child, their own identity, like it has its own identity. And I think there's a lot of merit to that statement. That actually, you know, they talk about how sometimes it just takes on a personality of its own, and that actually the job of your creative is to harness that and roll with that, as opposed to trying to meticulously micromanage every step of the process. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and that the difficulties with making movies, especially Disney movies, seems to be that people are trying to capture that magic in a bottle by whatever means necessary, but fail to understand how you actually go about that. Back in 2004, Mel Gibson released The Passion, a movie that brutally depicted the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It was an incredibly emotional and impactful movie in which restored many people's faith back in Christianity. But today, one man has decided to take it a step further and has actually opened up a retreat in Judea where people can in fact experience what it was like to be Jesus Christ in the moments of crucifixion. What is being called the Jesus Christ experience. People are able to go to Judea for a 3-week vacation where they will go through the rigorous torment and torture that our Lord went through in the moments before his crucifixion. You will start with the betrayal in the forest, where then you will be brought to the jail cell, where you'll be brutally beaten and tortured while having lashes on your back and being insulted the whole way through. Capped off with the experience that is being the crown of thorns being pushed into your head and being forced to carry a 200 beam of wood up and down the hills of the streets in the city and cultivating at the crucifixion itself. Many people have gone through the experience and have come back saying that it has brought them to tears, that the experience is incredibly emotional and has completely restored their faith in Jesus Christ, as well as being a brutal reminder of what our Lord sacrificed in order to forgive us of all of our sins. So I recommend it for anyone who is looking to experience it. I haven't gone through it myself, but if you are someone, or if you know of someone who is in desperate need of a reminder, then be sure to recommend them this experience. It's fun for the whole family. You can bring your kids as well. Be crucified alongside them, just like our Lord was with 2 thieves and the Jesus Christ experience. I mean, that's what it seems like to me, at least, partly. Just because you own the copyrights to, what is still considered to be a great movie, and you try to do it again, doesn't mean you're going to have the same amount of success. But we contrast that with the Minecraft movie, or a Minecraft movie, as the official title is. And I think a lot of people are expecting this movie to flop and just be another one dumb, shameless disaster piece. And there are certainly elements of that in the movie. A lot of the dialogue is definitely geared towards small children who play Minecraft. Like a lot of the dialogue is basically pointing to the audience, the Minecraft players. They'd be like, "This is what's in the game. Get it? Because it's the Minecraft movie. This is in the game." Like there are several moments like that. Probably the most emblematic of this is it's that scene in the trailer where Jack Black says chicken jockey when a baby zombie gets on the back of a chicken. And it's just one reference after another, after another, after another. I mean, the crafting table is a good example of that as well. But it also was directed by the same guy that did Napoleon Dynamite. And as bland as some of the characters are, like the real estate lady, I didn't really care for her all that much. Or even the brother and sister. I mean, Jack Black and Jason Momoa were definitely the stars of the show, but those characters felt very similar to a lot of characters from Napoleon Dynamite. But a lot of the humor in that movie is very reminiscent of Napoleon Dynamite as well. And I honestly have to say that despite it being a movie geared towards children, there's a lot of very adult stuff in this movie that will keep adults entertained as well. Even though I think there are some parts of the movie that are quite gratuitous. Like, there's oddly a lot of, like, sexual innuendos in the movie. And I just found it very strange. I mean, even Jason Momoa's character is very, like, metrosexual. Like, can we just not have that? Can we have a variety of movies being released instead of, one studio takes a risk on a type of movie, it becomes successful, and then everyone just chases that trend? Like what made movies back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s so enjoyable to watch and so varied was that no one was following any particular trends, or at least the ones that were, you knew what you were getting yourself into. But there was still quite a bit of variety of other movies being released because they were trying to set trends instead of follow them. Or maybe it's just because they were done a whole lot better. Like if they were all just chasing trends, then it was done with a lot more uniqueness and talent than what's being released today. But I guess this is a long way of saying I just wish passionate and talented people were making movies again, as opposed to people, business people who are only doing it for the sake of investments and bottom lines. I mean, it's great when a movie makes money, but when a movie dramatically fails, like Snow White, it makes you think about how many other projects are going to have to cut to recoup their losses. Like, a bad movie doesn't just hurt the industry in the sense it doesn't have enough money. It means that potentially other good projects don't get their funding. It means that Snow White was released in favor of something else that could have made its money back and then some. But instead, they decided to release Snow White, thinking it was a safe bet, but actually ended up being a colossal failure. And then you have things like the Minecraft movie, which everyone was betting on being a colossal failure, but went and saw it anyways because they wanted to see just how bad it was. And now it's made $163 million in its opening weekend. Like, can anyone explain that to me? Can anyone explain that math to me? Like, is that just the formula nowadays? Like, I guess this is another trend from the Sonic movie. Like, when it had that first trailer with that, Down syndrome looking rat. Like, how many people's butts do you think filled the seats just on that premise alone, off of Schadenfreude, who just wanted to see how bad this movie was going to be because of that character design alone? I mean, of course, they changed the design, and I think all the better. And actually, the Sonic movies are actually not that bad. They're pretty decent. I actually recently just watched the second one, and I have to admit it's pretty good. Not the best movie I've ever seen, but it's a pretty good movie. It's entertaining, to say the least. But the idea that even bad movies can make a ton of money based off of their cringe topics, like Minecraft, like, I suppose that's a winning formula. I suppose you can get people to see it. I don't know. But, I just want them to be good movies. And I suppose so good it's bad movies too, because I like that too. We do need both good and bad movies, but if only the standard for good wasn't so low because of how bad movies have gotten. Like, let's raise that standard a little bit. Like, I really would love to see the day when movies like The Godfather are considered terrible movies because of just how fantastic movies have come. I mean, The Godfather is an incredible movie, but part of the reason why that's the case is because what other movie has came close to that level of quality? But I mean, what do I know? I'm just some idiot on YouTube. But with all that being said, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and God bless.